This is episode 218 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Michael Albaum. Michael is a professional remote real estate investor with over 12 years of experience, Airbnb Superhost, and the founder of myFI, which stands for Financial Independence. If you didn't know, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Super excited to be here and chat with you today, man.
Yeah, I'm excited because we just had like the best pre-call ever. So it's always
I
nice to
know.
get in here and talk to people who are also a podcaster as well. What's your podcast called, just for my audience as well?
Yeah, it's called the Remote Investor, and so we specialize and focus on doing this whole real estate investing thing, but from afar.
Yeah, did your focus become remote because you live in Northern California and it's just like cost inefficient?
Yeah, yes, exactly. But it's funny, like I kind of fell into the whole remote thing, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it
Yeah.
wasn't something that I was doing intentionally. It was just this light bulb aha moment of like, oh, I could just go somewhere else and do the exact same thing and save a ton of money.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are going to need to look at that now just because housing prices are up, but housing to invest in other areas is still accessible for those people with the same amount of money. So I think it's going to be interesting. Are you seeing that as part of your journey and also people that you talk to in your coaching?
Very much so, very much so. People are kind of getting fed up with the cost of housing and especially the coastal markets. And so like, okay, I got to put my money to work for me. I'm not going to be able to afford to buy a house. So what can I do to get ahead? Okay, let me go invest out of state, which just was never on folks' radar previously.
Yeah, yeah, and I really love it as an idea, especially if you look where you are in most parts of California. I mean, what you can rent a really swank price, and what you would get for that on a mortgage is like a disaster. So,
Right.
that makes sense. If you're in the Midwest, you can probably do both, because the prices are accessible, which is
Yes.
nice. But let's go back. When you were growing up, were you interested in real estate at all?
It's funny. My dad had some property from his dad from back in the day, so I was kind of very lightly exposed to it, but it was never something I understood. I was exposed much more to insurance. He was an insurance broker his whole career, so that was kind of my bread and butter. What I grew up with, talking about at the dinner table, and it
Yeah,
made me realize I never want to get involved in the industry. And yet, of course, here I find myself because we all become our parents.
yeah.
And so I knew a little bit about it, but it wasn't until I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm sure like so many listeners, that I had this light bulb like, oh my gosh, this is pretty cool. So it wasn't something that really was part of my upbringing.
So how did you start scaling up? Because I know you went from single and then you got bigger and then slightly bigger as you went along.
Yeah, so I was working in a job that was taking me all over the Western US. And so I was whatever market I happened to be in, because now I was a big bad real estate investor. I'd always, go on Zillow and look at the rental and the sale filters and just see what things cost.
Yeah.
And I had it was like, holy crap, you mean I could buy a triplex for what I paid for my first single family? And like the cost is 1 to 1, but the rental income was like 2x. I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't care where the thing is. I care about the numbers. And so wherever I happened to be for work, I started buying these rental properties, and I was living well below my means. I had roommates. I mean, Jonathan, I think I lived with roommates 6 months into being a married person. My wife and I, we had roommates. And so it was a means to an end.
Yeah.
She was game for it. She was like, okay, this thing is going to allow us to do these other things down the future. So yeah, we had roommates, and so I was just turbocharging my savings, spending every dollar I could on saving, and then pouring it into real estate. And so yeah, was able to scale fairly quickly that way.
Let's talk financial independence because I know your company is called myFI, but financial independence kind of gets looped in with the FIRE movement too much, in my opinion, because there's a difference between retiring early and being on time freedom, which is what we're really chasing, which resonates more to me. Financial independence is different than financial freedom to me. Freedom can be different for everyone. Independence already indicates that it could be different for everyone. So what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's the independence of time and money. We're disconnecting those two, and so it's you don't need to work a job to earn an income, and the income that you are earning, whether it's from real estate investing, stock investing, wherever it's coming from, you don't have to show up and do the thing every day, and you get to decide how and where and with whom you'd like to spend your time.
Yeah. But how important is it to get to your financial independence to grease the wheels of that W-2 as long as possible, get the runway, and then get, like, way more runway so you know you'll never have to worry about it.
Yes, like, hypercritical can't be overstated enough. I think there are so many people out there pushing this, "Quit your job,
Yeah,
retire tomorrow," and I'm
at
like,
22.
at 22, and I'm like, "Oh my god, like, that's the worst thing you could do." Okay, so
Okay, I
I'll
agree.
just share a story with you. So,
Yeah,
in 2019 is when I left my corporate job the first time, and my dad had passed away a little bit prior to that. And I told work, I said, look, I just need 6 months to go reset, do a mental reset. You don't have to pay me. I'm taking unpaid leave of absence,
yeah,
mental health type stuff. And they're like, I'm sorry, we can't hold your job for you. And I said, then I don't need this job. And I said, I'm out. So my wife and I went and traveled the world for a while and had an amazing, amazing time. And we were earning dollars. She still had a remote job, but we were earning dollars from my portfolio
yeah,
in dollars USD and spending in pesos or colones or whatever we happen to be. And so there was this currency arbitrage that was happening. And so by all effects, we were financially independent at that point in time. And we came back to the States and now our living expenses increased significantly. I ended up doing some consulting and ultimately went back to work. But during that period of when I wasn't working, I went to go refinance our mortgage that we had on our primary residence, and the bank said, "I'm sorry, we can't lend to you," because I didn't have 2 years of
yeah,
self-employment income.
yeah,
I said,
yeah,
"You've gotta be kidding me." I said, "This is like, you look at my paper net worth balance sheet, it's like, of course I'm good for it. If
yeah,
I can't make the mortgage payment, there's plenty there, guys, like, don't worry about it." But they said, "No." So when you talk about quitting your job, like, yes, there are massive implications when it comes to getting access to the best loans, getting access to easy financing, getting
yeah.
access to doing all of the things you're trying to do to put you on the path towards getting towards financial independence becomes much more challenging without a W-2. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it. People have been doing it for a long time and they will continue to do so. But in terms of path of least resistance, keep the W-2 and use that to its fullest.
Yeah, and I mean, to hopefully you work at a job that you enjoy so that when you leave, it's a win-win. And what you did is so important because you did choose to go back and then you probably chose to leave again. But people always ask me like, "Oh, what are you going to do if, this part doesn't work out?" I'll just go back to being a lawyer. I don't want to, but I can. I can go back to my other careers. I have other careers that I could go back to. So no matter what you've done, you can go back. You may not be able to go back to the one company, but most of the time, if you're a good employee, you probably can because most employees are terrible.
Yes, yes, and I mean, that's kind of exactly what happened to me in that I had this development project that I was mentioning. I ended up having 2 fires in the building a week apart. Yeah, like insanity. And part of the worst part about this is that I'm a professional fire protection engineer. I was working in the property insurance industry. Like, I can never show my face in this community again.
Yeah, that one's done. You just cancel that one
Put
out.
a
Yeah.
fork in it. It's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I had this insane insurance investigation. COVID was happening, crazy project going on. So I had all of these expenses. This thing was just like bleeding like you wouldn't believe. And so I fell out of financial independence because of that. And so I did go back to work
Yeah.
because of that. And I was like, oh, I got to support my family. I've got bills to pay. And so, like you mentioned, when people are like, well, what if this? What if that? Okay, well, I can attest. It's not a what if. It's, hey, this happened. Therefore,
Yeah.
I did go back. And like you said, that will always be available to you as long as you don't, burn those bridges too bad. Maybe you burn them with your company, but as long as you don't become a pariah in the industry,
Yeah.
you'll be okay.
If you're showing up the day of the closing and you're trying to find a way to get out of it, you weren't ready. You're probably in trouble because you're going to have to close, but you should know that feeling going up. When you're looking at when you're making your first offer, you should want to win. But I can't tell you in my experience over the last 10 years of working with clients, how many people win and then they're like, "Oh, I
What
didn't
have I
think we were
done?
gonna win. Now like, well, why were we doing it? Like, we were trying to win. Like, we beat 6 other people. Let's go." And now they're like, "I don't really know if this is the one." It's like, "Oh, we're gonna reset your journey now. Your momentum ball is all the way at the top of the mountain. You're just gonna drop it and let it go all the way down." Is that something that you see a lot? Because we've been talking about a lot of similar things. There, another podcast. Let me just listen to another episode of Bigger Pockets before I do this deal. That'll lock it up for me. Nope, that didn't work.
It's interesting. So something that I tell folks, and I'm curious to get your thoughts, is as you're getting started in your journey, especially if you're just starting out, go make offers on properties because it's free. and because you can back out. And I like people to experience what that's like. And so getting an offer accepted and then finding something in diligence says no, or getting their offers rejected, right? And kind of intentionally, just so you get your at bats in. Because for me, what I found is that there were so many new experiences and so many things to keep track of that every single thing I did was brand new. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I kind of had to get used to that. It was a little bit of shock to the system. So if we can ease people into it, it's like, go make an offer knowing that you're going to get rejected. See what happens, see what that feels like. The next time you go make an offer, it becomes easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And from a client level, there's one subset who's just like, I just want to make 10 low balls a week. I won't do that because it's just not a good use of my time.